topic of DICOM, right? Just some time back, you were referring to DICOMs, and I just remembered attending your talk in Nalcon around DICOM process injections. In your session that I was looking at, it was very extensively talking about how to carry out, DICOM process injections, and I think that's well documented. I'll also share the link for that. It's the video is also public, so that the listeners can refer to it. And it was quite interesting, but it was totally about the attack on the offensive side. What I was curious to know for our listeners was, how can teams detect these kind of attacks, and not just detect, but also prevent these kind of attacks in a systematic way? What is the method? Is there a methodology to detect these kind of attacks? Is there a systematic approach that they can have that can help organizations prevent these kind of attacks, particularly DICOM sort of attacks? Maybe you can also briefly talk about what is DICOM, like digital imaging and communications, but a little bit more about how that's used.
So, that's a good question. So, very interesting question. See, I'll probably give you the answer bluntly, straight to it, saying that how can we detect DICOMs and stop it? Honestly speaking, there's not much an industry solution that's available in the market, right? So
that's why you choose.
That's why. To be honest, the other colleague of mine, he was doing research on it for quite a while, and when I took over my position as a senior staff cybersecurity architect, I happened to see what these guys were doing. But since your brain works towards mainly on malware and memory forensics, they've been writing Yara rules for a year and a half, in and out on malware. So my mind constantly works on that, and seeing tons of malspam over the years, right? The one thing that struck me immediately was embedding malware inside DICOM. So that's the only thing that came to my mind. And the other thing was how to stop it. So DICOM is basically a very simple thing. Okay, let's probably talk about it. Now, earlier, if you had visited the hospital, probably I'll talk about our generation when we used to go to the hospital, when we fall down, we had a fracture. They used to give the X-ray and used a chalk piece to mark on it, right? And then remember, they used to put everything inside a folder. I still remember carrying those folders everywhere, right? Now everything's become digital today, right? Now, in the same hospital, when you do an MRI scan, a CT scan, and an X-ray, each of this has got tons of metadata to it: name, age, date of birth, sex, and blood group, let's say, for example, or can be even insurance details. Everything gets tagged to something called as a DICOM. It's a digital format that gets moved around inside hospitals today.
I think it's pretty fast also. I think there's a benefit that we have seen with everything being digitized. You can get the report in the same day.
Absolutely.
Quite convenient for users.
Yeah. Exactly. And also, if you observe your hospital, the doctor probably opens his computer. You all would have wondered, what are doctors doing with computers, right? Now, this is one of the solid things that they use. Now, everything is being digitized. If you observe, doctors have been using applications to key in the patient observations. That's why the moment you give your patient ID, everything, history, who saw you, everything comes at one shot.
Yeah.
Adding to it, there is always something that he shows you in your computer, turns the monitor and says, dude, this is where your fracture is. That's because of the DICOM. It's a digitized format of your X-rays and scans. Now, this moves around with using something called a PAX server. It's like a protocol. Okay, the server, you have store, move, like HTTP post get put. This has got something like move, store, and it moves around your DICOMs across seamlessly from the devices to the technician, or to the technician to the doctors. Now, everything has a flaw. Okay, now what happens when you read a DICOM? It's a digital format. There is something called as a preamble. Usually what happens in this, the preamble is basically stripped when somebody reads it. Now, there was a research done about when you strip a preamble and you can insert some malicious content to it. We probably went one step ahead and we started talking about how can we insert PowerShell into it, and how can that same, now when it comes to DICOM, it's Windows. There's no Linux involved into it. Okay. And that's the boon. That's the major boon here. Okay.
For attackers.
And you would have still seen a lot of hospitals using Windows XP. Shocking, but true.
Yeah.
Many of our A teams also work on XP, if you observed. And especially if you've seen some of these advertisement boards, you'll see sometimes those won't work. But you've seen this Windows XP logo kind of move around, or 7 move around.
Or errors
No.
or exceptions.
Exactly.
A lot of those things, yeah.